What's your fuck this, I quit story? Was at a job for 3 years, consistently in the top 3 of my department in terms of performance. Asked my supervisor repeatedly if I could be recommended for advancement/promotion, and he always told me he was trying his best to get me new opportunities. Found out from a friend in a different department that I'd been considered a top candidate for 4 different promotions, and each time my supervisor had blocked it. When I confronted him with this information, he told me it was true and he did it because I could never find someone who does what you do without paying them a lot more. Internally said fuck this, I quit and found a new job within 3 months. Took all my PTO, and on the day I came back I quit 2 hours into the day, leaving him high and dry at a peak time. Fuck that dude. I worked for a company for over a year that was contracted to make deliveries for Amazon. The vans they equipped us with were terribly maintained, and fully unequipped to handle winter weather. I worked with the company through their first winter, which meant sliding all over the road when it was icy and getting stuck constantly every time we had snow. I never had a major accident, though I did have 2 or 3 close calls where only minor damage was incurred to the van. I decided to stick it out through the summer, when the weather was obviously much better. All summer long they promised us that new and better vans were coming. September rolls around, no vans. October, no vans. November, no vans. That month we got our first real snow. I got back from my route and immediately put in my notice. My boss told me they would be getting new vans by the end of the year. I told her that was nice and walked. I was in the same position for 2 years and was actively looking at other positions within the same company. Bosses knew about it, it was just time for a change and to advance my career. Great opportunity came up and I was offered the position. However, my current leadership blocked me because I received a promotion 6 months prior. That promotion was literally an automatic email that said congrats, you're now level 2 instead of level 1, because I had met my sales attainment and completed all my yearly trainings. Literally an automated email stopped me from getting promoted, and bosses said I had to wait another 18 months. Left that company and went to a competitor doing the same thing for better pay and significantly more support. I was 20 and had been working in a call center for just over a year. I was promoted to an assistant manager with a new compensation structure that was identical to the other assistant manager. Basically, you got your wage, a very small percent of the total office revenue, and then 10% of your own revenue from when you worked on the phone. My immediate manager and office supervisor gave me this without confirming it with the regional manager, who was on a 2-month vacation in the DR. When I got my first check after being promoted, there was no bonus. I was told it would be corrected soon. When I got my second check after being promoted, there was no bonus. I was told it would be corrected soon. When I got my third check after being promoted, there was no bonus and I was told we had to wait for the regional manager to come back and authorize it. I was being paid weekly and worked another 4 weeks under the premise that I would get a lump sum when the regional manager returned. The problem was that I sold significantly more than the other office manager. The back pay had grown to such a large amount that when the regional manager did return, he questioned why the office manager had given me this structure, as he considered it to be too much money. On my next check there was no lump sum and I was told that they were figuring out a new structure. My following shift I stayed home and got a frantic call from the office manager asking me why I wasn't at work. I told him I couldn't afford to go to work. He said, "Why can't you afford it?" "Because I have been getting ripped off for 2 months, call me back when you have my money or don't call me at all." Never did get paid. Currently in the US military. Was back and forth about re-enlisting for another 4 years, have done 9 to this point. I have a 3-year-old daughter at home who I haven't seen in almost 2 years for more than 3 weeks. Was talking to an officer in my chain of command when I told him my thoughts. I had just received orders to remain overseas for an additional 2 years. His exact words were, "You've already missed 2 years of her life, you can afford to lose 2 more." I went to my command career counselor office that day and signed my intention to separate. Edit just because some people are confused by wording. The officer meant I've already missed 2 years. I could afford to miss 2 more since I've already know what it's like. I was a new sous chef at a country club. Chef wouldn't let anyone but himself do the ordering. His ordering method was to go over a sheet of paper hanging on the line where people wrote down what we were out of. Not what we were nearly out of, but what we were completely out of. Any time I'd try to add items that we were close to out of on, he'd lose his shit. We were constantly out of things. One day, we had a huge Easter breakfast event. Dipshit chef didn't order near enough eggs and we were out of all sorts of other random items. I was out front making omelets for members. Ran out of eggs and stood around for 15 minutes waiting for more while the members became increasingly frustrated then angry. Went to the back to see chef yucking it up with the foam manager. Handed him my apron and told him to pound sand. Was it that job for less than 2 weeks? I interviewed for a corporate accounting role because public accounting was much less pay, and a lot more hours. Was told in the interview that it was show up between 8 to 9, leave between 4 to 5. There'd be no more working late nights, or having to work on weekends, which was great. I took the job, and within 2 months realized they were lying through their teeth. First off, there was absolutely no training on their processes. I was given enough work for 3 people, with no direction on how to do it. My manager was so scatterbrained, he could never give me any help when I asked. No one talked for 8 hours a day, and it was just an unbelievably bad work culture. I'd get to work usually at 8:30, and leave at 4:30 while eating lunch at my desk. I came in one day and was told, since you're leaving so early, I can only hope you're working from home. Then the next week, we're told we have to come in for a full day Saturday because we had New Year's Day off that Monday. My final straw was when I left at 2:30 one day for a doctor's appointment. When I came in the next day, my manager pulled me into a room and said that I didn't have enough accrued PTO to do that, and he was going to dock my pay, in a salaried position. Went in the next day, told him it wasn't working out and put my 2 weeks in. On my last day, he told me I could leave at 11:30, so I did. When I got my final paycheck, he docked my pay for the remainder of that day. Luckily, the recruiter who got me the job followed up to ask what happened, and I was completely open and honest with her. Apparently, that manager has a very high turnover rate for the position I was in, and the recruiter told me that the CFO is looking into replacing him. Arrived at the bar to work my shift only to discover that the owners had sacked my manager because there was, in their view, too much wastage. At the time, he was recovering from major surgery on his arm. He had 3 young children and an 8 months pregnant wife. They thought they were losing money because not every drop of beer poured went into somebody's drink, which is just a fact of life in a bar, and not because their idle Torag's son/brother, father/son owner duo, kept coming in with his mates and demanding we give them drinks they didn't have to pay for. Quit on the spot, went to the manager's son's christening a while later. A year or 2 after that was told the bailiffs had come to visit the bar and left with quite a lot of furniture. Couldn't have happened to bigger cunts. Had my annual review after finishing my first year at a retail store and I got a 13-cent per hour raise. A co-worker of mine who drunkenly broken into the laundromat/grocery store in town to steal beer a few weeks prior got a 14-cent per hour raise. And new employees were making 12 cents more to start than I was 1 year in. Fuck this, I quit and fuck you Under Armour. Edit, a lot more comments than I anticipated, but here's some more info. This was in 2012 to 2013, so a while back. Our store manager went to a national meeting, ended up getting another store manager pregnant, not sure if they knew each other prior to that, but he left shortly after I did. Some other shit went down with reports by the employees against longtime managers and new managers, so some regional or HQ exec came in and fired all the managers and they started from scratch. Very poorly ran over the entire course of my employment there. Considering the manager who hired me allegedly got fired for sexual harassment. Or he quit just before that. When I left, I left to take a job from the UA assistant manager's wife selling shoes at Dillard's. The assistant manager worked for a few months at UA before quitting around the time I did for a lot of similar BS reasons. At Dillard's, I made $11 per hour before commission, drove like 10 minutes to work instead of like 30, and had a way more enjoyable experience but still ended up leaving after 6 months. Now I work in my field of study while I finish my master's. So done with retail forever, I hope. I was working in a particular role for a small charity. It was already a busy role, but then due to changes within the company my role got ridiculous. I was the senior manager looking after the budgets and accounts and acting as an accountant, so suddenly had to teach myself all about charity tax law, which is not easy. I was managing marketing, media, communications, strategic implementation, a reception and all customer service, a physical and online shop, 10 members of staff, legal compliance including insurance and data protection, health and safety, HR, reporting and end-of-year audits, preparing papers for and attending trustee meetings, procurement as well as general meetings. To the point where my job had gone way beyond my original job description anymore. Anyway, despite all the extra responsibilities, my boss still expected me to have time to do everything to an extremely high standard and couldn't possibly understand there would be any reason that I was overwhelmed apart from me being shit. Strange how everyone in that place also complained about being overworked, and that at one point the staff were going to go to the trustee board to see if they could get him replaced. It was always everyone else's fault. He sat me down at my 12-month probation meeting and said that I wasn't doing well enough to be given the job permanently, so he wanted to extend my probation by another 3 months, in which time he must see improvements. And what did I think I needed to improve? I said that I had been telling him for months what I needed to improve, which was for him to take the fact that everyone was overworked seriously and his expectations of what a human being could achieve were ridiculous at best, which was apparently never going to happen, so I quit. He said he didn't want that. I said I did, and just quit. It had been on my mind for a while, but that pushed me over the edge. A part of me wanted to stay, to go to the probation hearing and let everyone in HR know exactly what he was like, but I was just so done with the whole thing. Best decision ever. I now have an amazing job I love for a different charity that actually values what I do, and it feels great. Summer job in a downtown, scuzzy part of the city, retail store. Repainting the wooden fence around the parking lot. The fence wood was a pattern, so on an angle you could see through it. I was painting the one side and a guy walked up on the other side and started pissing on the other side. A stream of piss almost on my head. I yelled and said, "Get the hell out of here." He continued to piss, and then dropped to a squat for a number 2. Got up. Packed up the paintbrush and paint. Went inside for a break. Boss said, "What are you doing in? The fence is not done." I said, "You don't pay me enough to get pissed on." I had a manager who just didn't like me. I don't know why, it happens. But she couldn't keep it professional, and acted as if every mistake I had made on purpose, just to fuck with her. Meanwhile everyone else told me that they were super happy with me, and I was a great worker. So she had worked that Saturday, and when I turned on my PC that Monday morning I had about 10 emails from her, all with screenshots and rude remarks like, "Why is it so hard for you to follow the rules? And how did you not know this?" While she was the one that trained me. Fuck that shit, I'm worth way more than that. My boss had my crew and I cut corners on a job. I was fairly new to the position and took what he said as the way it was supposed to get done. Inspectors then came and checked the job because of an unrelated screw-up by another company, and in turn found out what we had done. Boss then blamed the whole thing on me and denied he ever told me to do it. It was done. Spent the next 2 days replacing all previous work to the way it should have been. Boss then told me that he was not going to pay me for the days of work, 14 hours each day, because I was fixing my fuck-ups. All the while during the 2 days getting called a fucking idiot and a liar. Fuck you, I quit. Short story, boss tried to cut corners, got caught, blamed it on me, then refused to pay me to fix it to try and recoup some of the losses he took. I quit. Was volunteering in a local charity shop at the weekend. As it turns out, most of the non-paid volunteers were conscripted from job seekers or community service or whatever. They had to turn up to get their welfare payments etc. Anyway, I'd been there about 6 months, was hard graft at times moving sofas round the shop, up and down 3 floors. It was a nice sunny day and I was taking my lunch break out the back sitting on a sofa at the loading bay doors in view of a public car park, eating a sandwich with my feet up on the railing. All of a sudden some woman who I've never seen before starts waggling her finger at me like I'm a naughty kid, then shouting at me in a disgusting tone, "Get up, young man, how dare you?" She kept ranting on. I'm like, who the hell is this? She get confucked. Slowly I get up and move inside. Turns out she was the area manager. She pissed me off so bad. I didn't really have an issue with what she was asking, it possibly didn't give a good impression, it was the way she was speaking to me I had a problem with. I think she thought I was the typical conscript who could be abused without recourse as they had to stay there and take the abuse in order to get their payments. Some customers in the shop heard how she spoke to me and they backed me up, so I knew I wasn't nuts. Told her she could stick my volunteering and I got the hell out of there. Never went back. Made me think, why should I give up my free time to help this bitch on a fat salary hit her targets? I doubt she had a charitable bone in her body. I wrote a 2-page letter of complaint to the head office but never did send it. Kind of regret that. Was working 10 to 12 hours a day at a startup where my official work hours were 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. One fine Friday I finished what I was doing and shut down my system all ready to go home at 6:45 p.m. and was told that I cannot leave cause my work hours were 10 to 7 and I should go back at start at the blank screen for 15 more minutes. Started going in at 10 and leaving at 7 every day even if it was release day or the production servers were down. Took me some time to get out of there due to adult life problems, but that was the day I unofficially quit. Edit, holy shit, this blew up. To everyone who has morons like these leading you, start interviewing, switch teams, don't lose sleep over it, most importantly keep it together, soon you will be out one way or another. Trust me, I have been there. Cried myself to bed for many days. Granted, I got really fortunate with my friends helping me, but in the end it was my good, hard-working character along with my skills that finally got me out, and it's not worth losing yourself because of such idiots. I used to work at Dollar General. I was about 5 months pregnant at the time and had a lot of tailbone pain. I normally worked freight because even though I was pregnant, I was still the most efficient at it. At some point my manager had gotten into a serious car accident and couldn't return to work for a few months. This basically promoted our assistant manager to manager. Dollar General does inventory once a year for each store and it's pretty much hell. The only good part about it is that you don't get a truck that week, so there's no freight to put up. The bad part about it is that you get a huge truck the next week. So we get through inventory and the next week we got the huge truck as expected. I ended up having a scheduling conflict due to an appointment and wasn't able to come in during the day on a Thursday to put up freight, but could come in that night or another day. So instead of the assistant manager letting me do that, she just took me off the schedule completely and didn't replace me with anyone. All while we have the biggest truck of the year. It was pretty obvious she was doing it to be petty, so I called the manager bawling my eyes out because it wasn't the first time something like this has happened. You know who got yelled at? I did. I was 5 months pregnant. Putting up freight even though I was in a lot of pain doing it. Was the hardest worker there. And the assistant manager was being petty. So I was fed up, clocked out for lunch that same day, and never went back. Edit, bonus story. 2 of the people I worked with were robbed at gunpoint right before closing and quit on the spot. A couple months later, the manager had a gun put to his head during another robbery, but he stayed. There was a video on the news and everything.
Sinister V's, sinister voices. Yo. Action-packed, Black Mac 10, Junior and his friend. Not a pot to piss and starving brothers on a mission. 2:30, bring your plan around the toll booth. GW Bridge, got the weapon concealed, nothing to lose. They choose to break the rules at all costs. Stick 'em in Jersey, hit the other side to New York. Black and red leather suits and black biker boots. One got the gun, the other one controls the motorbike. Adrenaline pumping, dreams of cash. Anybody try to stop them getting lead in their face, believe that. Black Pack.